Well, hello everyone. It looks like we've got some breaking news. QSIA have called for the prawn import ban to remain in place. I've got Eric Perez, the CEO of QSIA, on the line to explain what's going on and why this sudden media release. Hello, Eric.
G'day, Dane. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. So, what's the story?
Okay, the story is that as of late this afternoon, we've had information sent through by the biosecurity team in the federal government, signed off by Dr. Andrew Cupid, who's the Assistant Secretary, Animal Biosecurity, that as of the 6th of July this year, they're going to lift the import ban and introduce new stricter controls so that we don't get white spotting again and all will be well.
So import ban is in the green prawns that were banned because of
Correct.
the introduction of white spot.
That's right. And it's just out of note for interest for your listeners. It's funny that this came out and it was announced by public servants and not a ministerial release. Not that I've seen one yet. There might be one coming tomorrow, but yeah, that's how they've let a crustacean fishery worth almost just over 990 million a year last count across the country know that we're going to re-import prawns from overseas. And funnily enough, minutes after the initial announcement that that ban was coming to an end, there was a second update sent by the prawn liaison officer letting us know that the department has received written confirmation by Vietnam's counterpart competent authority, the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development of Vietnam National Agro Forestry Fisheries Quality Assurance Department, that it can meet import conditions included in the updated health certificate. So that was pretty quick for something that came out today, and then within an hour, suddenly they've announced that Vietnam's met the threshold. So
wasn't it Vietnam that was complaining when the import ban was brought in the first place?
Correct, and it may be for those of us who are sceptical of how governments work that maybe this was being planned before they made the announcement. But who knows, mate? I can only go on the emails that I receive, and I'm just a poor peon in this whole process. So that's what our media release is about, and this whole process is now becoming a pretty sick joke, mate.
So we've already got prawn farms that have been devastated by this whole thing, and not only the prawn farms, wild caught fishers that have been devastated by this, who my understanding is they were neglected when it came to the $20 million that was handed to the aquaculture sector.
Something your listeners should be aware of is that, and I don't know all the details of the prawn farmers agreement, so you'll have to bear with me a little bit on this, but just to be quick, they've signed an agreement, and of the $20 million that they're getting from the federal government, $4 million or 20% of that money has to be repaid in levies over a certain amount of time, you would think, or at least that was in the media releases that came out around the time that this was done.
The farmers who have been devastated by this have to pay money back to the government, even though it's the government's fault that they've allowed a foreign disease to wipe out their farm.
On the surface, it looks that way, and it's part of what you call a deed of agreement that's signed between government and industry to deal with this stuff. So what the farmers would have signed, is my understanding, is something equivalent to what they call an emergency animal disease response agreement, or the acronym that they use is an EADRA. And there's for the farmers, it would be an aquatic version of that. But the detail of that particular deal, whatever that is, I'm not privy to, nor do I want to know. But from a wild harvest perspective, to get back to your previous question, we haven't entered into one. We've shared correspondence with our members, and I'll be sharing it more broadly on Facebook as soon as I can, on some issues that we brought to the Deputy PM's attention about an aquatic EADRA for the wild harvest sector. And the basic premise of this is that if you own land and you've got an aquaculture farm on land, you can treat disease as it gets there because it's land-based, and you can quarantine what you're doing more so than in a wild fishery environment. And I guess the key there is that the prawn farmers, whether they're leasing or they own their land, they have tenure on that property, whereas in the marine system, it's a very basic thing. We don't own the sea country that we fish. We pay access rights to get at that resource, and so commercial fishers don't have tenure. We have a right to fish, and that means we have a right to go fishing, but it doesn't guarantee that we're able to catch fish, and we therefore don't own that resource. So from a wild catcher perspective, we shouldn't sign up to an agreement like that because industry doesn't, we don't own that marine resource, and we can't put a value on it because it's a community resource. So signing that kind of agreement, particularly from a Queensland perspective, and let's say because you've got to get agreement from more fishermen in that region, let's say in the trawl sector or the crab sector, to sign up and say, yes, we agree to pay back a levy to receive some form of assistance. Why should we? Why, when we don't own the resource, why should we have to pay for the repair of that when it's not our fault that it happened? And the only way that this particular disease could have come into the country is through one avenue, and that's through poor border control. So that's the situation we face, and I'm sure there's going to be some kind of media from the federal government saying, well, we're stubborn, we're not wanting to sign onto this to date. So since the 6th of December last year, no financial assistance from any level of government, and we're being treated like pariahs here. And this lifting of this ban is just another demonstration that government really is not that concerned about the wild harvest fisheries.
In QSIA submission,
Mm-hmm.
I noticed there was a section on biosecurity Queensland, and it seemed to me that the federal biosecurity actually knew a fair while before biosecurity Queensland. It's as if they don't even talk to each other.
Yeah, that's what we're led to understand. From the evidence that's being given to the ongoing Senate inquiry on this issue, it looks like federal government, the federal department, or at least some public servants knew about this, but were fighting the good fight without actually communicating to other departments and other jurisdictions that it was.
Moreton Bay fishers, for instance, does it make it hard for them to put their faith in these new laws that are apparently coming in with biosecurity? If they can't even keep themselves up to date, how are they going to manage something like this and keep these businesses safe?
Well, apparently we'll just have to trust that they're doing the right thing by us, like we have done the last 10 years. But fortunately, that hasn't led to a good outcome. So it's like my president says, it's an insult to industry. It's an insult to our intelligence, and we need industry at all levels to call out the government on this, because they're not only exposing us now, they're saying to anyone in the crustacean fisheries in the country, yeah, you're just going to have to deal with maybe this stuff coming in, and we think the risk is low enough that we'll happily tell you we're putting new controls at the border, and hopefully it doesn't happen again. Those certain sectors of the food service industry that were railing, shouting to the heavens that there weren't prawn available. No, there was plenty of prawn available. There just wasn't the cheap imported prawn available.
Every time they reallocate the access from the commercial sector to the recreational sector or to the environmental lobby, it increases the imports because the public doesn't stop eating seafood. It just takes their rights away of accessing local seafood and makes them eat imported seafood. And as we increase the imports, it would raise the risk of biosecurity risks, wouldn't it?
Well, unfortunately, yes. Look, I asked your listeners because we're making our media release available. What we've done since the start, there are a lot of really hardworking people across the country that have put submissions into various reviews. So there's the ongoing Senate one. There was the Inspector General of Biosecurity. Lots of different state and national seafood bodies have put submissions in. I'd ask those who are listening, if you've got a spare half an hour to an hour, look at some of those submissions, have a look at what's being done and what's not being done, and ask yourself a question: why would you lift a ban?
Thank you very much for coming on again, and keep in touch, and hopefully we can get some better outcomes than this.
Sure, thanks for the opportunity, mate.
No worries. So that was Eric Perez from Queensland Seafood Industry Association, and we will keep you updated as the information comes in. Go and check out my YouTube channel. We'll continue to upload content. My website, www.commercialfishingmedia.com. I'll talk to you later.